Well, happy Thursday, everyone. Welcome to ATG's April Cybersecurity Meetup. Glad you're here, and thank you for joining us. I'm Jeff Dix. I'm the Chief Security Officer here at Alvarez Technology Group. And on the call with me today is Anil Mawali. He's our Senior Cybersecurity Engineer. Say hello, Anil.
Hi everyone, good morning.
Luis Alvarez is out having fun somewhere on a well-deserved vacation. So he asked Neil and I to handle the call today. And the topic for today's call is called Right of Boom. What is Right of Boom? Well, Right of Boom is a cybersecurity conference for managed service providers, also known as MSPs, and managed security service providers, also known as MSSPs. And the first conference was last year in Tampa. I attended that initial conference. It was a lot of fun to go out to Florida and meet with other cybersecurity professionals working in our industry. And the first iteration just had 100 attendees at that conference. So pretty small effort. I'm glad to report that this year's conference, which was held this past February, had 500 attendees. So it grew
Wow,
by five times in just 1 year. So what does that mean
that's
for
awesome.
small, medium-sized businesses? Did you want to say something, Daniel?
No, I was just saying that was awesome. That's
Oh,
quite the
yeah,
growth in 1 year. Shows
yeah,
how
it's
small and
awesome.
medium-sized businesses are taking cybersecurity more seriously these days.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And what does that mean for small and medium-sized business? Is that means there's more services and more expertise that can be accessed by small and medium-sized businesses. So good news is the help is coming. Previously, pretty much higher in cybersecurity services were for larger organizations, enterprises that had the financial resources and the human resources to actually implement and maintain their cybersecurity. The small and medium-sized businesses always have been left sort of starving for those types of resources, but they are now available, and the pricing is now affordable for the organizations that we're talking about, small and medium-sized businesses. Okay, so what is right of boom? Let's talk a little bit about that. Well, the boom is the incident that you don't want to happen to your organization. It could be a ransomware event, which is still prevalent and a very dangerous threat to businesses these days. It could also be a what's called a business email compromise, where potentially users and an organization's email have been compromised. A threat actor gets access to those mailboxes and can send out fraudulent emails as that person. And if it's a high level person like a CEO or CFO, it's easy to trick people and into possibly doing fraudulent financial transactions, which could lose a company a lot of money if the fraud is successful. And so that's the boom. The boom is a big event. It could also be an earthquake, right? So some sort of a catastrophic event that interrupts your business, or a flood. In our area, we've recently had experience with floods. So it's not just limited to malware types or just IT related incidences. So boom is the big event. So we have right of boom, which is the name of the conference, and then there's left of boom. So most organizations are fairly well versed in and are addressing issues left of boom. What are those cybersecurity issues left of boom? They're making sure that you have a firewall that's properly configured, maintained, and monitored. That you have possibly intrusion prevention system in place on that firewall or another mechanism to do that. Do you have antivirus on your desktops and your servers? That at a minimum. Today, we like to see what's called endpoint detection and response software, which is sort of the next iteration of anti-malware software products. Do you have what other things can you think of that might be left of boom?
Making
Uh,
sure you've got backups in place, at least nightly backups of your most critical data, patching your systems, making sure that as patches come out from not just Microsoft, but third-party vendors that you install them, especially if you see something that's what we call a 0 day in cybersecurity, where a vendor suddenly discovers a vulnerability in their software and releases a patch, and you get it installed as quickly as possible. So things like that is what I always think of left of boom, is the prevention as much as possible.
Yeah, I would include training of end users, of an organization's
Absolutely.
end users, to make them aware of cybersecurity threats and how to respond, how to tell if they've received a fraudulent email, a phishing email that is trying to do something nefarious, those kinds of activities. So organizations are pretty focused and know about those things that they need to be doing left of boom. So let's talk about right of boom. Right of boom doesn't get as much attention, especially in the small to medium-sized business space. Right of boom covers things more like incident. You're talking about incident response. So you have an incident. What are you going to do? Well, hopefully there's going to be some sort of incident response. There will be some sort of incident response, whether it's planned or a formal response is what's in question today. Many organizations don't spend any time in that space, so that if they have something like ransomware happens to them, they're not really prepared and don't know what to do. And it makes things pretty hectic in in space, because their business has been interrupted and possibly not able to function at all, depending upon the severity of the event. So number one right of boom item is really sit down with whoever does your IT, whether it be a provider or MSP or MSSP like us, and make sure that you have roles assigned, right? Who's going to deal with the press? Who's going to lead the response? Who's going to work with the cyber insurance company? Hopefully, the organization has cyber insurance,
Absolutely.
which
That's a
is,
critical one.
yeah, something that a lot of companies still don't have to this day, that they need to have in order to help them recover from an event. Basically, if you don't have cyber insurance, any recovery efforts, the paying your provider to come in and help with the recovery, or having to pay, hopefully not having to pay a ransom, that's going to come out of the pocket of the organization. And that's why you want to have cyber insurance there to help you pay for those costs for that boom event. So, incident response, very important to have a plan. There's a lot of online tools these days that can help with an incident response plan, define the rules and what steps need to be taken if a boom event occurs. The other thing that a lot of organizations don't do right of boom, it's really in preparation, I guess, is actually practicing their recovery process. So practicing really comes left of boom, but you want to make sure you practice your recovery process so that you know it's going to work right of boom, and that you're going to be able to either spin up your servers in the cloud. Um, Hopefully in the cloud. Everybody should be backing up all their data and their critical systems to the cloud these days, because that's really your last line of defense for an incident such as ransomware, where all your data has been encrypted and you don't have access to it. So another thing that I like to talk about is what are most SMB organizations, or the question I'm asked a lot actually is what SMBs should be doing that they're not doing today. And one of the other things that I would say that a lot of organizations have not done is to adopt what's called a security framework, which is basically can identify gaps in your cybersecurity in your organization. What you do is you can compare yourself to a security standard, such as the Center for Internet Security's 18 critical security controls, which lays out everything that a small organization, small or medium-sized business should be doing to protect themselves and to reduce the risk of a cyber event from occurring. So that's a really good thing to do. It also can align with your policies and procedures in your organization for cybersecurity if you align yourself to one of those frameworks, and that's one that I recommend highly. Um, what else can I say about Ride a Boom? Well, the good news is there's, like I said, mentioned, there's a lot of resources coming down, and the prices are coming down for some of the advanced cybersecurity services. Anil, do you want to talk a little bit about just in general some of the services that are now available to the small, medium-sized businesses?
Yeah, especially if you partner with an organization like us, an MSP or an MSSP, we can come in and we can help do an assessment to review your network in your cybersecurity posture, and comparing it to the controls that you're referring to, Jeff, like the 18 controls that are from the Center for Information Security, just to kind of get that baseline to see where you currently are in your cybersecurity posture and what you need to do to get yourself into a better posture with your network and your security. Small to medium sized businesses in particular, should really partner with a third party organization, whether it be an MSSP or another sort of audit or consultancy firm, in order to help them do that. Just because the resources to do that are quite intensive, and trying to take that on themselves can be difficult to do. So there's a lot that can be done at the get-go. Your basic stuff like we were talking about, left of boom, the multi-factor authentication, making sure your backups are in good place, making sure that you test your backups, antivirus, endpoint detection and response. And the other one I always like to refer to is application whitelisting. We have a tool that we use in-house called ThreatLocker that is really a powerful tool that learns what you do on your computer, and then once it's in a secure mode, it makes sure that anything that tries to run that's outside of the ordinary is stopped. So, for example, if there was an executable that was going to try and launch ransomware, or if there was a Trojan, horse software or something like that that was going to do something that was out of the ordinary, ThreatLocker would say, no, not on my watch. We're going to make sure that that doesn't happen. So there's things like that are available and are now in the price range for small to medium-sized businesses to implement in order to keep themselves, safe, secure, and successful.
Yeah, I like to think of ThreatLocker as sort of the ransomware killer. It's when I really kind of think big picture is what is it doing? It's giving organizations the ability to control what executables are actually running on their networks for the first time ever. So, and being able to do that, if you whitelist and only approve applications that are allowed to run in your network, if ransomware happens to get inside and somebody launches it, it won't run because the executable will not run because it's not a part of an approved list. But so that's what I look at as sort of how do we reduce the risk of ransomware? It's with application whitelisting products such as ThreatLocker. The other thing that I think organizations really need to be focused on is business email compromise, as I kind of mentioned earlier. And the best mitigation, and you referred to it, Anil, is multi-factor authentication. It still amazes me that the number of organizations that aren't using MFA at a minimum in their email environments to mitigate the hostile takeover of individuals' mailboxes. So those are definitely two things, MFA and application whitelisting, that you could do to mitigate both the biggest threats that are still out there right now. Cool. Let's see, what else can we say about Ride Boom? I think it's going to continue to grow. People need to become aware of what boom is and what things are on the left of boom, what things are on the right of boom. Did you have any questions for me, Anil? Do you have any questions about Ride Boom, or are there any questions out there from anybody in the chat that we could answer at this time?
Yeah, just as a reminder, there is the Q&A tab in Teams, and you can throw a question in there, and we'll be happy to answer it. We don't have any questions yet, but one of the first ones that comes to mind for me is just the scale. You were mentioning that there was originally 100 people at this conference, and now 500. And anything that you would attribute to that? Do you think cybersecurity is just getting more of a focus, or what would you say the growth was in 1 year for that?
Well, I think mainly is the sheer number of cybersecurity events that are going on that MSPs, will speak about the lower level of service, have to deal with. They understand that if they're spending all their resources helping their recover, their clients recover from incidents like ransomware, that takes up resources and takes away resources from their other customers that need other services. So there's definitely a huge demand for it. And we had this, personally in our business, we were having 3 to 4 ransomware events a year in our client base, and that was just sucking the resources of our advanced engineers in those recoveries. So one, I think people in our business recognize that there's a huge demand for it. There's always been this issue of being able to bring advanced cybersecurity services down to the small, medium-sized businesses because of cost. But I think that's finally changing now. Providers are offering lower cost solutions so that anybody can really have an advanced cybersecurity posture by utilizing some of these tools and the expertise. You have to have the tools and the expertise to manage the tools to be able to have an effective cyber defense.
Sorry, someone coming in the lobby there. I thought I'd just admit them real quick. No, that's interesting stuff. And speaking more about, ransomware, some of the things that I've seen recently in the news is that it seems to be a bit of a downtick these days in the number of ransomware events that are occurring out there across all industries. Do you have any comments on that, Jeff, on this current trend, this downwards trend in ransomware?
Yeah, there was a lot of discussion at the Write a Boom conference, and a lot of the feeling is that a lot of threat actors are based out of Russia, and a lot of threat actor groups are, in Russia and in Europe in general. So when the Ukraine war started over a year ago, is those threat actor groups, instead of spending their time focused on us and other countries, began focusing on each other and trying to undermine, each other's networks to help them in the war in Ukraine. So that was kind of speculation. There's no way to really measure that, but recently we have noticed an increase in ransomware attacks. It's starting to trend upward again. So it definitely hasn't gone away. It's a very lucrative business for these threat actor groups. They're able to make a lot of money if they can get people to pay ransoms. And but I think that our cyber defenses are getting better, but we are still there's still a big challenge for organizations like us to help protect our clients in small and medium-sized businesses. So
Yeah, so as our tools get more sophisticated, the threat actors get more sophisticated on top of that.
yeah, and they have a lot of resources, financial resources, to hire the best, programmers, software developers to write malware and to mitigate, the protections that we put in place. So it's a cat and mouse game. Something great like ThreatLocker comes out, and then they'll focus on either some other aspect or focus on how to get around the protections offered by ThreatLocker. Although I think that's a very big challenge because of the way ThreatLocker is designed and built. But definitely interesting. It's it's the blue team. We're the blue team, and there's a red team that are trying to come in and get in our clients' networks and get them to click on links and download attachments that have malware to do very nefarious things in their networks. But I think we're making progress. We're definitely making progress. There's a long way to go yet, but at least we're taking the first few steps, good steps, significant steps in our market area to reduce the risk for our clients.
That's excellent. That's awesome. Yeah. Speaking more back on the Write a Boom, what would you say is a good time frame for implementing some controls? And actually, before I finish that, looks like Forrest has got a question for us.
Excellent. I like questions.
Yeah. So Forrest asks, what do you recommend for information and resources regarding incident response planning?
Okay. There's a lot of resources out there online. We have relationships with a couple of them. And we try not to mention specific vendors here, although we did mention ThreatLocker because, it's hard not to mention ThreatLocker when we're trying to mitigate ransomware attacks. But certainly for us, we can connect you with some of those resources. I think the online resources are good. I think the problem with incident response programs is they get very complicated and get very detail oriented. So it becomes very cumbersome and takes a lot of time to get all that information about all the different types of scenarios and different things that could happen and different responses. I think for what I recommend is simpler is better. If you can just get your incident response team organized in a portal, define the roles, take a look at, maybe have incident responses for the biggest threats, which right now are still ransomware and business email compromise, and not make it too complicated. You don't really need a lot of detail. It just has to be a guide to guide you through the process, and it'll reduce some of the stress that the entire organization can feel when they're going through an event like that. So I'll make a note for us to reach out to you, and we can give you some options
The other
that
thing I
we
would add
recommend.
on top of that would be your cyber insurance, if you have it, which you should. Your cyber insurance carrier is a great resource too. I know a lot of them out there, if you reach out to them and say, hey, we're looking to revamp or create or update our incident response plan, what can you do to help us do that? And quite often, cyber insurance companies will have like templates or playbooks that they can help you to implement for your company. And if you don't have cyber insurance, I 100% recommend getting it. And we at ATG will be able to help you get that too, if you don't want to go out and try and find a company on your own. But cyber insurance is an important one for incident response planning.
Yeah, thanks, Anil, for that. I'm glad you mentioned that, because something I meant to talk about on this call is that if you do have cyber insurance, which you should, the first thing in your incident response plan, in addition to defining all the roles in your organization, is to call your cyber insurance company and ask them for guidance. Because once something happens, you've got to involve your cyber insurance company immediately and follow their recommendations. And part of that as well, as you alluded to it, Anil, is that the cyber insurance organization will have their own incident response team, as well as lawyers, of course. Lawyers always get involved, and they are actually going to probably direct the incident response. This I'm talking about your cyber insurance company now. The cyber insurance company's incident response team. They will actually um, direct the response. So for our clients, we would assist in that mode and follow the direction of the cyber insurance's incident response team. We can't go off and start re-imaging systems or restoring data from backup, because that could invalidate a insurance claim that you might want to submit to your cyber insurance company. So you want to protect your recovery and the financial resources that would be required normally to respond from an incident. And you want your insurance company to be happy with you, so that they'll pay the claim, any ransom claim, or any other expenses associated with a recovery from a catastrophic event such as ransomware.
Yep, exactly. Well, we just got a few more minutes left. I got my little pop-up that reminded me I've only got 5 minutes left in our meeting. If there's any other questions, feel free to throw them out. Otherwise, Jeff, any other comments or closing ideas that you want to share?
No, I think we covered I wanted to cover in this meetup. Hopefully, this information you'll find useful. And if there's further questions about any of the topics we talked about today, you can reach out to Anil or myself. If you're a customer, you probably have our contact information. If not, you can contact me at jdix@alvareztg.com. And Anil's last name is a little more difficult to spell, but it's go ahead and give your email.
Anil Malwani, it's AMELWANI, N is an Nancy, I at alvareztg.com. And you can always just, reach out to us through our website too, alvareztg.com, or pick up the phone, 831-753-7677. We'll be more than happy to chat with you and see how we can help you, increase your cybersecurity posture, do an assessment if you're looking to get an assessment done. And, just as I always love our little phrase, we want to keep you safe and secure so you can be successful. So anything we can do to help you, that's what we're here for.
Great. A good conversation, Neil. Thanks for being on and running the background. And thanks everyone for attending this month's call. Hopefully we'll see you on the call in May. And everyone have a good rest of the week.
Take care, everyone. Thanks so much.